All right, we are live.
We are. Exciting. Yeah, we've got another great week lined up and good topic for today, too.
Great topic for today. Actually, somebody asked me this question yesterday, but I'm excited to get into this because it's so important to know when to draw that line. So I'm
Mhm.
excited about this conversation.
Yeah, me too. It's one of my favorite topics.
Hmm.
So, welcome everyone to E-Quips. These are weekly coaching tips that equip coaches, future coaches, and coach like leaders to develop their excellence in coaching. I'm Laurel Elders, the founder of the Institute for Integrative Intelligence. I'm a master certified coach with the International Coaching Federation, and I got my start as a professional coach in 2005 when I became an official coaching geek. And I have with me today Brian Alexander. Brian is a coach and works with us in admission. He he loves helping people align with the coach training options that are best suited for them and their organization.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for that introduction, as always, Laurel. And I guess just to get it started a little bit differently, like I know we had a lot of RSVPs, so where are
Mhm.
people logging from? If you want to just drop it in the chat, please let us know where are you logging from and what made you decide to join today. So take a few seconds to do that. But as Laurel said, that I work with the Institute for Integrative Intelligence and Admissions. So really helping people on that coaching journey. And over the last month, last 3 months really, since I've been here, we've been able to really connect on things. And one of the biggest things that I
Mhm.
think has brought a lot of value is these lives. Like I just like getting on here and, like you said, geeking out about coaching, right? And just the transformational process it can be for somebody. So grateful to be here, and I'm a coach myself. And when did I start geeking out? I started geeking out about coaching around 20. What was it? When I actually knew what I was doing, probably
Mhm.
like around 2017. That is when I started to really geek out about it. So
Nice.
glad to be here.
Yes. And we also have with us Jill Arnoff. Jill is a leadership coach. She's here to answer questions in the chat and post links as we go. We're going to be covering different resources. So she's here to be support in that way.
Cool.
And if you're new to joining us, we do these equips every Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern. And if you'd like to receive those in your inbox, Jill will post the link to the newsletter below. That way you get direct connection to every episode. And today's topic, dun dun dun, here we go,
Here we go.
drawing the line between coaching and therapy.
Mm.
And this is actually a part one of a part two series. So today we're going to really just explore some things to consider around where the line is, why the line is there, but also dispel some myths and overlaps. So I know, Bryant, we were talking before how a friend of yours, I believe, had shared, I just don't understand this distinctions. And I can say that I really relate with that because when I first took a coaching class, I actually thought I was learning counseling skills.
Mm.
I signed up with like that intention.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when I actually started coaching, I used to emphasize like I am not a therapist, so I cannot help
Mhm,
you with that. I tried to make sure that line was drawn so fast.
mhm,
And because I was worried that, like, all right, what if this person starts getting into like the past and all these other things? And I was like, I don't know if I should be talking about that. I don't know if we should really dive into it. So I was actually like very early on, I was very transparent. Like, I am not a therapist. I don't want to like try to label your depression, your childhood, anything like that.
mhm,
But as time has gone on, I understand like, all right, there is a line here.
mhm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a line. And just to draw attention to the fact that therapists are trained and licensed to diagnose and treat.
Mhm.
Coaches are not. We do not diagnose, we don't even assess. We offer client self-assessments, but we're not assessing our client and advising them. So
Mhm.
that's a key distinction right there. But I do know there's another reason for confusion is because there's some skill overlap, and there's four primary skills that overlap. So empathy, reflective listening, exploring emotional content, and asking powerful questions. Both approaches use both, but there's a very different foundation for why.
Mhm.
A
Mhm.
therapist is hired to help a client go in a certain direction and explore things from the past, get healing from things that may have happened, and get guidance in life. Whereas a coach is sitting in honor of the client's truth, views the client as the expert, and does not have a bias. Or if they do, we're trained to put our bias aside, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
To be in complete honor of the client directing the process.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to my motto, coaching is therapeutic, but it is not therapy. Okay. And the funny thing is that it actually helps when you have a therapist. But I want to like really emphasize your point around like, when we honor the client, what that means is that, the client comes with like, this is the intention that I have out of this engagement, or this is what
Mhm.
I'm looking for, this is what I want to grow in. Therapy is like, they're going to force you like, hey, we got to talk about the past because you have all these behaviors, you have all these tendencies. Let's try to label them. Let's try to help you understand them. Let's try to help you start to maybe unlearn them sometimes.
Mhm.
But I like that differentiation because coaching is very just when you're in honor of the client, it's very future focused, right?
Mhm.
No agenda, no biases. It's like, what is the thing that you want, or how do you want to move forward? How do you want to create the vision, the life that you want for yourself? And I
Mhm.
think that's where, like, that line is kind of drawn. Like therapy can, in my opinion, my philosophy, therapy can only get you so far. Then it's like, okay, I understand like my triggers. I understand I've healed from, my trauma a little bit from my traumas because we're always healing.
Mhm.
But now it's like, what is the future I want for myself? How am I going to really unlearn the things that I thought were true about myself and move forward?
Yeah, yeah. In my first training, they made the distinction of an architect and an archaeologist.
Mm,
So an archaeologist is like therapy. It helps us dig through the past to make sense of what's going on. And in coaching, it's more like architecture. We're helping the client build their vision in their life.
mhm,
So I
mhm.
thought that was pretty neat.
I like that.
Another really powerful metaphor that I found in understanding the distinctions is actually, I've made some slides just to give this some life, is
Mhm,
the metaphor of a garden in our life. So, for example, if we've experienced something traumatic, or if we're just going through a midlife crisis, whatever that is, it's almost like the weeds are overgrown. Or hey, you might have a tractor in your land, right?
mhm,
There
mhm,
might be something getting in the way. So, in order to have a garden, you've got to clear the path. So, we start to clear out the weeds, and we do some healing work on things that have happened in the past, and it clears the ground. So
mhm,
now we have a clearing. Now we can decide, what do we want to plant? What do I
mhm,
want to show up in my life? How do I want to be in my life? What do I want to grow? What fruits do I want?
mhm,
And so we start to begin with the end in mind. And then if we nourish the garden, we grow. So it's really healing and growth leads to full integration.
okay. Yeah.
And each serves its own purpose. So I had a colleague, Anna Malikan. She put this so brilliantly. So she started out as a therapist and transitioned into coaching. And she said, as a therapist, I would help people get from -10, like the problem was just too big, and she helped guide them into more of a neutral space so that they could live their life and not have the problem overwhelm them. But as a coach, I help them go from that neutral to +10 in their
Mhm,
life. And I thought, That is so brilliant. I know we've talked about that before.
Mhm. Yeah. And I guess to add to that, it's yeah, you're actually about to hit it right on the head.
Mhm.
Like just understanding the roots, and it's in my opinion, like coaching is work on yourself, like really challenging yourself to create the future you want for yourself. It moves you from a sense of like, I am a result of, or I'm a product of all of this that I've been through, to, oh, I have the ability to create that garden that I want in my life,
Mhm.
whether it be personally, professionally. Of course, at the Institute, we're about integration. So one
Yep.
is connected to the other all the time, but really making sure that, you are, I guess, really just making sure that you live a balanced balanced life, but also understanding how much choice you have in the garden that you choose to plant.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be able to step into life from your wholeness, right?
Hmm.
That includes all of us. That
Yeah.
includes the wounds and the all of it. It includes all of it. And it really, it just like this image, I picked this image because it really shows how when we deal with what's at the roots of our life, it helps us grow in new ways. And that is why sometimes coaching is ineffective. If
Mhm.
somebody has something that's bigger than them, the coaching may not even work. And so that's the power of education, and an educated coach will know exactly when, where, and why, and how to refer out. And
Mhm.
sometimes some people step into coaching while they're seeing a therapist because they're working on growth and they're working on the inner work with their therapist. And that's a powerful combination. It can be.
Mhm. And Laurel, I have a question for you. So
Mhm.
how do you know when how does one know when they're ready for coaching? How would you gauge that? I know it's different for everybody,
Sure.
but overall, like how would you know, or what would be the signs to say like, oh, I'm ready. I think it's
Mhm.
time for me to get into coaching.
Yeah. I would say one thing that I've observed, and this is just me, I think
Mhm.
other coaches might have some different experiences, but one thing I've observed is that the client is completely open to self reflection work
Mm.
and really being self honest and transparent with themselves. So
Mhm.
if there's that openness and willingness to take a look at, like, oh, that reaction I just had, that was actually based on something that happened 3 months ago, just get really honest, then they can, what we call, hold the coaching, and the coaching can work. And I want to pull that back into what you said about coaching can be therapeutic. The
Mhm.
coach does zero therapy, but for some reason, when a client steps into self development, self discovery, into
Mhm.
that coaching process, it can have a therapeutic impact on them because they're doing their own work for once.
Mhm.
So it is fascinating.
Mm. Yeah, that so and I'm just playing devil's advocate, but what if somebody says, but that's what I go to therapy for, to like, have self-discovery, have like an
Mhm.
understanding of myself. Like, so what would you say to those people? Like, that's what my therapist is for, right?
Yeah, I say great. As long as you're getting your needs met, that's what matters.
Mhm.
Coaches are really trained just on that second journey that we talked about, the self-discovery
Mhm.
journey. So that's
Mhm.
all we do. We are focused in on growth, self-actualization, and integration. So that's
Mhm.
our wheelhouse. So that's all
Mhm.
we do. Some therapists do both. They will notice when a client has shifted into the space to be able to do the growth work, and they shift the modality to coaching.
Mhm.
So, and it goes really well together.
Mhm.
Other therapists would refer out to a coach after the client has completed, the work that they came for.
Mhm. Yeah. And I guess I want to emphasize that something you said, like, self-reflection, self-actualization. Uh, and that's why and also just the second journey, how you kind of put that
Mhm.
into words, because I think the mindset, since we talk a lot more about mental health, therapy, a lot more openly today. We
Mhm.
think that, or what I've observed is that people say I'm healed, or, like I'm healing, or I have this trauma. I think that that is a lifelong thing that we don't always
Mhm.
like pick up on. And you're never really healed. And you always carry around that trauma just a bit. You may be able to manage it more. But I think that's where coaching really comes in at, right? Because I think that what I found when I was in therapy was that, all right, I understand all these things about myself and I'm very aware of them, but I still have my reactions. I still have,
Mhm.
like, my judgment. I still carry around this desire, right? Or I still have an aversion to like still being vulnerable because I'm aware of it. I know when it's happening, but I'm still doing the same thing. So is it to say that, therapy didn't do its job? It's like, I wouldn't say so. I think that I just have I have a label for it and I know when it's happening and maybe I could react differently in those situations. But I think that's where coaching kind of helped me out at, in that, okay, like, let's kind of dive into like how does that feel, right? I think the
Mhm.
thing about therapy was like it didn't teach me a lot about, and some therapists do this, but it didn't teach me about that kind of embodiment of um that embodiment of a emotion, or that embodiment of trauma, or that embodiment of healing. Like, it didn't really like teach me about it. And it talked from the perspective that and this is, again, no shade to a therapist, like things were happening to me.
Mhm.
And I think that with coaching, it's like, no, you experience things, right? You experience emotions. You aren't your emotions. You experience trauma. You aren't your trauma. You experience healing. You aren't your healing. So now it's like, okay, how are you going to react differently? Or what is the thing that you want to work on in regards to being more in tune with your body, being more in tune with the way you process like problems or situate or perceive challenge or negative thoughts, negative emotions, because I would still have a lot of negative thought patterns even coming out of therapy. But
Mhm.
coaching, I said my intention the first time I did coaching, my intention, limit negative thought patterns. That is something I want to do. So we actively like did work as far as like, what is somatics? Like, how does that feel? Or what are these situations? Like, how are they showing up today? And how do you want to do them differently? So I think that's where coaching really, like, for me, that's where it kind of draws the line, because it was a little bit more holistic. And
Mhm.
like you said, like what we do at the Institute, it's more integrated. It's not just about getting you a job. It's like, what's the bigger picture here, right? What are we trying to really get to? Like, what's the bigger goal? Because you're gonna get the job. We know that. You've done it several times throughout your career. You're gonna get it. But now it's like, what is the bigger picture here? And how is this in service of you versus you being in service of it? So I think that's where coaching really like accelerates growth, if
Mhm.
anything.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It really helps us to start to begin to live our life through our wholeness.
Mhm.
'Cause there's a part of us that is whole. There's a part of us that's complete. There's a part of us that has wisdom. But do we have access to that? And is our past getting in the way of us
Mhm.
seeing that part of ourselves? Yes, we have the fragmented parts. Yes, we have
Mhm.
the broken parts. Yes, we have the hurting parts, right? But can I get in touch with the highest aspect of myself and have that part of me start to inform my life? That's a totally different experience and a different perspective.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's talked about, just, I think, like, science is catching up to it, but it's talked about in such a mindful leadership. What does that actually mean?
Mhm.
Like being a mindful business owner, being more like bringing your whole self to work. Like, I think that that has such a different connotation today. Like, what does it mean to be in your body while you're doing work? When we talk about flow and work, when we know that something is energizing us, something is draining us, like, that is what I see coaching playing a big role in, as far as just giving people new awareness around, like you said, the highest self. What does that look like? What does that
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, I love that because we all have mind, body, and spirit. Whether you believe in a higher power or not, we all
Mhm.
have a human spirit. We're
Mhm.
born with a human spirit. So,
Mhm.
and we have a mind and we have a body. And so I think what's fascinating is coaching invites us to integrate those three and say, who's in charge?
Yep.
Who's in
Yep.
charge today? Because the mind is the most um, susceptible to self-deception,
Hmm.
whereas the body is just a neutral. It'll give you feedback based on where your presence is located, right? So just gaining self-awareness, and that's why um, I'd seen people who are open to self-awareness and exploring self-awareness through a coaching lens just
Hmm.
make so much leaps and bounds of progress in their growth.
Hmm.
All the skills, all the latent gifts that we don't know we have yet until we step into that new exploration.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. New. Like it's like it's so many ways you can go with it. You could talk about shadow work. You could talk about so much that goes along with this. But
Mhm.
I like how you said like everybody's born with a mind, body, and spirit. And even if you're not spiritual or religious, just think about it as self-fulfilling prophecy. If you have negative thoughts, you will become your thoughts. If you have positive thoughts, you become your thoughts. If you talk negative about yourself, negative things will happen to you. And like that's how I always like approach people. Like, well, this sounds like a spiritual thing I go on. It's like, no, just think about it as self-fulfilling prophecy. That's it. Like
Mhm.
what you think you will become, basically.
Mhm.
So I like the way you address that. But for those of you who aren't spiritual, who aren't religious, think about it as just self-fulfilling prophecy. That's how
Mhm.
kind of life works in itself.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. And the other side to that is our definition of spirituality in the program and integration work is
Hmm.
a connection to something that's bigger than just the self. So even just getting in touch with what is really calling me, what is my purpose, that can be highly impactful,
Mm.
regardless of whether someone is atheist or a Christian or a Buddhist. Like it's just tapping into what is my connection to something greater than just me.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, which coaching invites us to look at,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Well.
What's the bigger picture?
Sorry, I got excited. And it's just that connection. I think everybody's searching
Mhm.
for that today, purpose,
Yeah.
interconnected, and having a realization that you're connected to everything around you. Like nothing is really like by mistake.
Mhm.
What you attract is what you attract. It's like whatever you put out. But yes, coaching is very powerful in that way as well.
Yeah. So just to go a little bit deeper into the lines. Sometimes the question, which is best? Well, there's no best. It just
Mhm.
depends on what is the need. So therapy is designed to help foster emotional healing.
Mhm.
When a problem is too big that it's become overwhelming and disintegration behaviors take over and the client can't seem to get on top of it. If we can't get on top of something, get get the help, get the guidance. um you know there is there's a deep purpose for that work, right?
Mhm.
And if you're ready to face your fears, grow new skills, tap
Mhm.
into new potentials, and really self-actualize and ask the question, what is my potential? I want to find out and go on that self-discovery process. Step into coaching. It's just so impactful and profound.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. And I guess understanding that kind of relationship between therapy and coaching, to dive deeper, a little deeper on that, is that
Mhm,
what you'll find in coaching is that you may revisit, childhood
mhm.
stuff that may happen to you. And that's something I had to get used to because I tried to always create that line. But the thing about like you are who you are. Like all your experiences are
Yeah.
connected. So sometimes in coaching sessions, you'll be able therapy actually helps you be able to talk about, kind of that uncomfortability or that situation when you were a child or at any point in your life, and start to own it a bit more and like say like I want
Mhm.
to move away from this or I want to manage this differently. So if you find yourself talking to a coach and you like start to talk about things in the past or things that may have happened to you, the coach does not have a bias. nor will they try to label like this is what you might have. They
Yeah.
shouldn't if they are
Right.
a coach, or if they have a therapy background, but I don't even think you want to cross that line. But when it comes to just understanding like the power of these two things paired together, you are able to come to those coaching conversations with a lot more intention, with a
Mhm.
better understanding of what you're looking to get out of it, and just like overall, like you'll be motivated, right? You're not really you're not afraid to talk about these things. It's just more of a challenge, right? You're ready to talk about them. You're ready to unlearn them. So I think that therapy coaching duo really helps with accelerating like the change that you're looking to make.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I was pretty rebellious. I did not like therapy until I got coaching. And then I realized I can only go so far because I had some things I needed to look at. So then I stepped into therapy with a whole different lens and was open for the first time and did some pretty profound healing work. And then always continued to coach. I love the self-actualization process. But isn't that it's fascinating that it's just different times, different things. So looking at what am I needing at this moment?
That's a big deal, Laura. Like for you to be like against, to you to start coaching, but also be against like therapy at one point, but then you find out, okay, I can't go as far as I need to, so let me try this therapy thing out. That's a big
Yeah.
deal. You run a coach training school, and it's like, I was at one point therapy, no, wasn't for me. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I had some negative experiences growing up in my
Mm,
teenage years with therapists, so I just
mm,
kind of wrote the whole process off.
mhm,
Um, so it was neat to get to the point where I could be like, okay, I don't need that
mhm.
bias to get in my way anymore. I can be open. Yeah.
That that definitely resonates with me. I didn't have the best. I was exposed to therapy when I was younger, but I would just kind of go there and just like stare at the therapist, like, "What do you want me to talk about?"
Yeah.
So the only reason I was able to actually take it seriously because I was at least exposed to it, and I was like, "Okay, maybe I need to talk to somebody about what I'm going
Mhm.
through."
Yeah. Well, I wanted to also circle back to what you said about sometimes in coaching, something from the past comes up. And the difference is that we don't stay there.
Hmm.
We have that experience inform, okay, so what do we want? And the coach move is forward moving, forward thinking versus staying there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
And then the other thing I'd like to say, just being in the industry for so long is, there because coaching is not licensed, right? It's not you're not required to have a certification. You're not required to have an education or training or credential. Um, you know, some coaches that choose to not get an education or training may or may not know the distinction. So, if you are someone that's looking to hire a coach, just know if you do hire a coach that is credentialed, you know that they are trained in actual coaching skills. So that's something you can have a little bit of relief around. And I also just wanted to bring forward some distinctions.
Mm-hmm.
So there's training, there's education, there's certification, and then there's credentialing in the coaching world. So, an educated coach knows what coaching is, what coaching is not. A trained coach has developed coaching skill sets. And then a certified coach has their skills and knowledge of the what evaluated to see, is that coach actually coaching, or are they doing other modalities, other like
Mm-hmm.
consulting or counseling? And that coach is actually coaching, they get the certification. Once they get certification, then you're qualified to go on for a credential with the International Coaching Federation, for example. So just to bring that forward, if anybody's curious of the distinctions and qualifications that different coaches hold.
Yep, it is a process, but with any education, I mean, with any skill, it has to be constant learning. And talking to somebody I was like, I don't think I need to get a coaching anything. I don't need to go to coach training. But with any skill, education is required. Like I think that before I could really be comfortable like with coaching, because I have been doing it
Mhm.
for a while, or
Mhm.
coaching-ish for a while. It was like a combination of the two a lot of the time,
Yeah.
coaching and consulting. But when I actually enrolled in the Institute for Integrative Intelligence, it was it was very eye opening and like, oh, I'm doing too much in my meetings. Oh, I'm doing a lot of like setting the
Mm.
agenda. Like I used to literally put an agenda in a calendar invite for my clients. I'm just like, oh, this is consulting. This isn't really coaching. So once I was able to learn, and I think the thing of the point here is just education is so
Yeah.
important no
Yeah.
matter what you're doing. So I think as a coach, it's such a new and growing field that I think that education is very important as far as like how to actually deal with what a client's going through, because you want to remember you are still dealing with people's like lives like personal lives,
Yeah.
and they are
Yeah.
you're building trust with them. They will
Yeah.
at some point they will like just go with whatever you say, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just like
Mhm.
they have so much trust in you that you have to be careful as far as like how you kind of manage that relationship. So I highly recommend getting some type of education in coaching.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so big on the education piece. Training, maybe you need it, maybe you don't, but the education, just I'm big on just be educated.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's at. And that's a perfect segue because next week we're going to continue this discussion, part 2, on what is liability and what is scope of practice for each. So we'll dive a little bit more into that. So we hope that today's message has been a lantern to your path with coaching. It's our mission to elevate human potential through the art and the science of masterful coaching. So if you're an individual or organizational leader seeking to bring coaching into what you do, reach out. Bryant is here on LinkedIn. You can also email Bryant at admissions@integrativeintelligence.global. And we will hope to see you next week to continue the rich conversation. Thank you, Bryant.
Yes, thank you. And yes, please reach out to me if you have any questions. And I also just want to plug one more time. We only have a few more slots left for our March 22nd coaching fundamentals training. Right. This will be a 1 day training, 6 hours, right? Only 6 hours on a Friday, too. If you want to end your week powerfully, if you want to really get that education, start to get that education
Mhm.
around coaching, highly recommend you enroll. It was a transformational experience for me. But if you're just curious about coaching, we have scholarships available, but we only have a few slots left. So please reach out to me if you're interested in participating. That is March 22nd from 11 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Please reach out.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Bye.